It was a Friday evening like any other. The sky was painted in hues of orange and purple, and the hum of traffic outside our window felt somehow softer than usual. I had just finished folding the last load of laundry when my stepson, Josh, walked into the living room with his usual bright smile and a hopeful look in his eyes. Josh had just turned 16. He wasn't a little boy anymore, but he still had that boyish charm about him that made it hard not to smile back. "Hey, Rachel," he said, calling me by my first name, as he'd done ever since his dad and I got married 4 years ago. "There's this movie that just came out. Do you think we could go see it tonight? I mean, just the two of us? Dad's working late again, right?" He was right. My husband, David, worked long hours as a commercial electrician. He'd taken the night shift at a site about 30 minutes away, and I wasn't expecting him home until well past midnight. I looked at Josh, then at the pile of dishes still waiting for me in the kitchen, then back at him. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. "You know what?" I said with a sigh and a smile. "Sure. Let's go. Let me grab my bag." Josh fist-pumped the air, and I couldn't help but laugh. The truth was, I hadn't been to the movies in months. Life as a stepmom had become a constant juggling act between errands, managing a household, and keeping the peace between a teenager and his hardworking father. A night out sounded nice. It felt like a chance to bond with Josh, something I realized we hadn't done in a while. We picked the 8:30 p.m. showtime for a new action comedy that had been getting good reviews. On the way to the theater, Josh talked nonstop about school, how his basketball team was doing, and a funny prank someone had pulled on his history teacher. I laughed and listened, occasionally chiming in with advice or teasing. For a moment, I felt less like a stepmom and more like a friend. We arrived at the theater just in time, grabbed a giant tub of popcorn, and settled into our seats. The room was dim, the seats were plush, and the previews had already started. I glanced at Josh. He looked relaxed, his eyes on the screen, his long legs sprawled out like he owned the place. It made me smile. He was growing up so fast. Halfway through the movie, something unexpected happened. There was a scene where the main character has a heartfelt conversation with his stepmother, thanking her for being there for him when his own mother couldn't be. It was a tender, quiet moment that hit a little too close to home. I felt Josh shift beside me. He didn't say anything, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw him glance in my direction. Then, softly, he reached over and gave my hand a small squeeze. It was nothing inappropriate, just a quiet, gentle gesture. But it was enough to make my heart swell. I squeezed back, not trusting myself to say anything without getting emotional. In that one silent exchange, I felt something shift between us. For the first time in a long while, I felt like Josh truly saw me, not just as his dad's wife, but as someone who cared deeply for him. After the movie, we walked out into the cool night air. The parking lot was quiet except for the distant sound of laughter and a few car doors slamming shut. Josh was quiet for a moment, then said, "That scene kinda got to me." "Me too," I replied softly. He looked down at his sneakers, then back at me. "I don't say enough, but I'm glad you're in my life. I know I'm not the easiest to live with sometimes, but thanks for sticking around." I was stunned. Josh had never been the expressive type. He was a good kid, but reserved, often keeping his feelings guarded. For him to say that, it meant the world. I smiled and reached up to ruffle his hair, the way I used to when he was younger. "I'm glad you're in mine too, Josh." We got in the car and headed home. The ride was filled with easy conversation, peppered with laughs and a shared retelling of our favorite parts of the movie. When we got back to the house, it was nearly 11 p.m. The porch light was still on, casting a soft glow on the front steps. As we walked inside, I felt a deep sense of peace settle in my chest. Josh kicked off his sneakers and flopped down onto the couch. I went to the kitchen to get us both a glass of water. When I returned, he was still sitting there, scrolling through his phone but looking thoughtful. "Hey," he said as I handed him his glass. "Do you ever miss not having kids of your own?" The question caught me off guard. I hadn't expected it, but I understood why he asked. I sat down beside him and thought for a moment before answering. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But then I think about how lucky I am to have you in my life. I may not have given birth to you, Josh, but you've given me something just as special, a chance to love and be part of your life." He looked away, blinking fast. "You're gonna make me cry," he joked, his voice cracking just a little. We both laughed. Then, he did something I hadn't expected. He leaned over and gave me a quick, awkward hug. It wasn't long or overly emotional, but it was real. And it meant everything. That night, as I got ready for bed, I couldn't stop thinking about how far we had come. When David and I first got married, Josh had been skeptical and standoffish. He was still grieving the loss of his mother and wasn't ready to let someone new in. I had tried my best to be patient, to give him space while still showing up for him in the ways that mattered. It hadn't been easy. There had been slammed doors, silent dinners, and tearful nights when I questioned whether I was making any difference at all. But tonight changed something. Tonight, it felt like a wall had come down. Not all the way, but enough for love and trust to start flowing freely between us. A few weeks later, David had a rare Saturday off, and we all decided to have a family game night. As we sat around the dining table playing Monopoly, Josh laughed and teased his dad, sharing inside jokes with me, and even calling me Mom once by accident. He caught himself, paused, and looked embarrassed. But I just smiled. "You can call me whatever you're comfortable with," I said. He nodded. "Mom fits." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I just kept playing, kept laughing, and silently thanked the universe for giving me a family that, though not perfect, felt whole in its own way. That one movie night, which seemed so simple at first, had become a turning point in our relationship. It hadn't gone too far in the way one might think from the title, but it had gone further than I ever expected in terms of emotional connection, trust, and healing. Sometimes, it's not the grand gestures that change everything. Sometimes, it's a shared bag of popcorn, a quiet moment in a dark theater, and a hand squeeze that says, "I see you, I appreciate you, and I care." And sometimes, that's all it takes to go a little further into each other's hearts.